When's the next State of Play happening? We've got some updates and clarifications on Sony buying Bungie, and you can now connect your PSN account to Discord, but is it kind of limited? Let's find out in today's episode of PlayStation News. And before we do, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So the dust is starting to settle around this whole thing where Sony bought Bungie for around $68 billion, and it's getting weirder by the second. So initially people assumed that this would mean some exclusive content for PlayStation platforms, but Bungie was very upfront that pretty much everything they're working on, from Destiny 2 to all the unannounced games that are happening right now, will be multi-platform when they come out. Now that's just surprising on its own, because you would think Sony buying Bungie would mean that Sony wants to get some exclusive games out of the deal, and also, this is Sony we're talking about, the company that basically built up their insanely good reputation in the gaming industry by having really good exclusives. And the two areas they're lacking in right now are first-person shooters and live service games, and they bought the company that makes the only live service game that really stuck around for the long term. So you would think that they would want to get something made with Bungie that's exclusive to PlayStation. And there's no reason they might not in the future. I'm sure they're just waiting to see how Microsoft lets this whole Activision thing play out. Like if we start seeing Call of Duty being exclusive sooner than we thought, then Sony could turn around and say, hey Bungie, I know that this deal we made with you basically said, yeah, you've got complete creative control, but we own you now and we can tell you to do whatever we want. So yeah, you're gonna start making some exclusive games. I hope it doesn't really come to that, kind of just because it seems like unnecessary complication, but yeah, I could totally see that happening down the line. But Jim Ryan over at Sony did a huge interview where he clarified what's going on with this whole purchase and why it happened, and basically the reason that they bought Bungie is because they want to learn from the best how to make more live service games, because like I just mentioned, that's one area where Sony's content catalog is kind of lacking. They don't have any real truly ongoing games. They got kind of close with the multiplayer mode in Ghost of Tsushima, which had a raid, which had downloadable costumes, which had loot you could find, all that stuff that Destiny has that Sony doesn't really have in many of their other games. But they could take it a whole lot further with a game of their own, and honestly I think it's a really good call for them to have Bungie help them out, because we've seen so many different studios try to approach what Bungie is doing, like Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics with Avengers. I always think back to that quote where they say that they made sure that a lot of the developers on Avengers specifically didn't look at Destiny when they were making their live service game, and then we saw how their live service game turned out, pretty dang bad. And then over at Ubisoft with Massive, they have The Division and The Division 2. I think both of those games are really good. They're honestly, as someone who plays a lot of looter shooter type games like Destiny, I feel like Ubisoft actually got the closest with the Division games. They just didn't really support them after they launched the big expansion that let you go back to New York in The Division 2. Like they added in seasons, but then it was just super light on content. The drop rates were completely out of whack, and it just seemed like they gave up right when they were getting started. And one thing Sony's just really good at is letting their studios talk to each other and learn from each other and get help from each other. So if Bungie is doing their own thing with the Destiny universe, and now they have access to Sony Pictures so they can start making all the movies and TV shows they want to make, but Naughty Dog, for example, is working on some sort of live service element with this new Last of Us multiplayer game they're working on. Now they can talk to Bungie and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? What do you think we should do here with the loot aspect? I don't know if there's going to be a loot aspect, I'm just assuming there might be. Now they have that creative resource that's basically the best in the business on making these live service games. Now for people like me who play live service games, this is obviously really exciting. I love Destiny 2, I want to see it thrive, and this seems like a good avenue to make that happen. But for people who don't necessarily love games that you can't necessarily finish, or have a huge grind, or are basically hobby games as they're called, then yeah, this is probably not the greatest news in the world for you. But I feel like the stuff that Bungie is going to assist with is going to be for new games that are built as live services, and hopefully Sony learns from Ubisoft continually shooting themselves in the foot by trying to turn every single franchise they have, whether it's Ghost Recon, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, or whatever, into a live service looter game, and consistently getting on by their entire community for it. Like the examples are all over the industry of that not being a good idea, and if there's one thing Sony is good at, it's learning from the rest of the industry and not making the same mistakes. The other thing Jim Ryan talked about that was really interesting to me is that this is not the last acquisition that's going to be made by Sony in the near future. This has been in the works for around 6 to 8 months. As for what studios Sony could be buying, as for what they could afford right now, the two big options people are looking at are Ubisoft and EA. I honestly don't really want them to buy Ubisoft. I know there's a ton of great IP at Ubisoft, but Ubisoft has just driven so much of it into the ground. They've got so many insanely crazy live service games in the works, battle royales in the works, that just don't look very fun or exciting to me. I don't want Sony to pick up Ubisoft and have to finish those games out and have that turn into a huge resource drain for Sony when that money could be spent elsewhere on better games. EA, on the other hand, is kind of in a good spot to be purchased by Sony. I know that DICE is kind of a mess right now with Battlefield 2042, but if they had Sony resources, they could do a new Battlefield and actually get the time they need to finish it, and it would probably end up a whole lot better than the one they rushed out and included a bunch of stuff people don't want in the game because some exec over at EA really liked Warzone and decided that the new Battlefield should copy Warzone, which is absolutely bizarre. Like, Battlefield does not need to be copying Call of Duty. It's supposed to be different than Call of Duty. So with Sony's money, Sony's resources, I could see Battlefield actually turning out pretty well. I could also see Battlefront 3 getting greenlit and actually being a good game from launch, not this thing that EA throws out there and kind of crosses their fingers that people will just play and dump a bunch of money on from loot boxes and microtransactions, and then eventually it becomes a good game. I want something that's good from the start. Another studio they would get with an EA acquisition is Respawn Entertainment. They immediately get Titanfall, they immediately get Apex Legends. We could actually see Titanfall 3, which would be awesome. They would also own the Star Wars games that Respawn is working on, the first-person shooter, the Jedi Fallen Order series. The one thing that I feel like Sony money could assist with on Jedi Fallen Order as a series is the technical side of things, because that game was a technical mess when it came out, and it is still a technical mess right now. There's stuttering, there's loading issues, there's frame rate issues, there's everything that could have just been cleaned up with a few more months of polish that I feel like they would get under Sony. And then there's the Dead Space remake, which honestly I'm cautiously optimistic for. You'd think I'd be really excited for it because I'm like the survival horror guy, but like, man, I don't know, just all the stuff that's been said about this remake, it seems like it's changing things that don't need to be changed, and I really need to just see it in action before I allow myself to get excited. But if Sony picked that up and made Dead Space a first-party IP going forward, starting with a remake, I feel like that'd be great. Of course, EA owns a bunch of other stuff like FIFA. I guarantee you that would end up as an exclusive for as long as it could be possible, because we see what's happening with MLB The Show right now, where the Major League Baseball Association was like, no, you are not keeping this exclusive going forward. You are leaving way too much money on the table. So then they could get FIFA, pick that up, make that exclusive, rake in all that money, and get people to buy PS5s when they're available, of course. This stuff's honestly really hard to talk about because I don't have a degree in business. I don't work at a corporation. I really am not necessarily qualified to talk about who can spend X amount of money on what studio. I'm just giving you my opinion on who I would like to see end up at Sony. Industry consolidation is a thing. It's definitely happening. I don't love it. I've seen a lot of people being very doom and gloom about it. I don't necessarily see it that way. I would just wait it out, see what actually ends up happening before you get all up in arms and start hating your favorite hobby, because as much as other people who are talking about this would like you to believe, most people who are talking about this aren't business law experts. They don't know any more than me or you. They're just using Google like I did before this video to try and form a coherent opinion. The next story I have for you guys relates to Discord integration with PlayStation. Now, people have been kind of waiting for this to pop up because the button has been available on weird test beta versions of the Discord app for a while now, and now it is officially live. Sony basically had the biggest Monday ever where they were like, oh, we're doing a state of play, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We're also buying Bungie, and our partnership with Discord's finally paying off. It was a little hard to keep up with. It was a really good way to hide the news that MLB The Show is on Game Pass day one. I think Sony did a really good job there. Anyway, while this integration is cool, I'm a little disappointed at how light it is. Basically, all you can do is connect your PSN account to your Discord account, and then your friends will be able to see what games you're playing on your PS4 or PS5, which is cool, and it also makes it easier to add people to your PSN friends list if you're friends with them on Discord, but not already friends with them on PlayStation. That's awesome. I like that. I would like to see some more stuff integrated, like maybe being able to join their game, or have them share their screen from their PS5 to you, or if you go on the chat app on your PlayStation 5 or PS4, you can see your Discord friends as well as your PlayStation friends, and you could have cross community or cross app chat. There's a lot of options here that I feel like Sony has to be working on because they sunk so much money into Discord. Because the weird thing is, this functionality is there for a bunch of different apps. I mean, you've got it for Xbox, you've got it for Spotify, you've got it for Battle.net, you've got it for a bunch of things, like Steam even. So Sony spending a bunch of money to invest in Discord only to get the same functionality that other services have had for years doesn't seem like the best deal. So I just got to assume that Sony is working on other stuff with Discord. And thankfully we have some evidence of Sony doing just that with other companies, because way back when I think I was in high school or maybe even just beginning college, Sony bought a company called Gaikai out of the blue for a ton of money, and everyone was like, why are you buying this game streaming service that doesn't necessarily even work and doesn't have that many users? And it turned out to be the backbone for PlayStation Now, which is now becoming some weird competitor to Game Pass. I don't really know what Sony's doing with PlayStation Now. Obviously, it's going to have some connection to Spartacus, whatever that ends up being. But the point is, when Sony spends money on these companies, they have a precedent of eventually releasing something cool. So while this Discord functionality out of the gate is nothing to get too excited for, it's just kind of interesting. I feel like in the future, we'll have some really cool stuff going on with Discord. This feels like just the beginning because they made a cute little graphic, right? They had a little Discord guy, I don't know what it is, and then they had Astro in the Discord art. And I was like, oh, PlayStation and Discord working together seems pretty cool. There's nothing nefarious going on here. Or is there? And this last news story I have for you guys today is a little bit disappointing, but it's also kind of cool. I don't want to say it's bad. It's just like 50-50 split between disappointing and cool. So we've been expecting a new state of play in February for a long time now, just because leakers who are verified leakers, like they leak stuff that actually happens, have been saying we have a big one coming up and we're going to see some big games announced. Like a huge remake of a third-party game that's going to be exclusive to PlayStation, maybe Hogwarts Legacy, maybe Jedi Fallen Order 2. We don't know. Just some big stuff coming down the pipe. And then now we have this state of play announced. It's happening today if you're watching this video on February 2nd at 2 p.m. But the issue is it is only going to focus on Gran Turismo 7. Now, I'm definitely not minimizing Gran Turismo 7, and I honestly think it is a good time to have a state of play for it because this game is coming out very soon after Horizon Forbidden West, and I really don't think people realize how close this game actually is. So having a state of play that not only shows some of the new features that are coming to Gran Turismo 7, but also letting people know that, yeah, you're going to be able to play this soon, maybe even alongside a beta or a demo, which you've been waiting a long time for because of a website that went up months ago that showed that you could download a beta, but it just never really went live. Yeah, I think it's a good time for Sony to start telling people about Gran Turismo 7 because the clock is ticking on the marketing there. I'm definitely going to watch it because out of all the first-party PlayStation IP, Gran Turismo is definitely the one that I have the least experience with. I'm more of an arcade racer. When I was growing up, I liked Burnout Paradise, Burnout Takedown, Burnout Legends, all of these sweet games where you were crashing cars and blowing them up. There was this cool stuntman game I used to have. I wasn't necessarily the biggest racing simulation guy. I've gotten a little bit into them as time has gone on, but even now, I'm definitely more of like a Forza Horizon guy versus a Gran Turismo guy. I don't know why. I'm just like not into simulation racing games. That's just me though. If you like them, that's totally okay. I respect you. I wish I was more like you. But the silver lining here is that the leakers I mentioned who kind of got people's hopes up for this being something different usually aren't wrong. So while we are getting the state of play about Gran Turismo 7, there's nothing saying we couldn't get another state of play or a showcase later in the month announcing some new games. The timing really lines up. Like Sony needs to get some good PR out there. They need to announce some new games. They really need to do some stuff to get people hyped just before they play Horizon Forbidden West, which review copies are out there. Unfortunately, I did not get a review copy. I would love to tell you about it though, but by all accounts, the people who are playing it seem to be saying really good things. I read this awesome preview over on IGN of the first 4 hours. It seems like everything about this game is improved from the first game. So we have that to look forward to. And with this Activision deal just happening, with this Bungie deal not really being as exciting as it initially seemed, I feel like if Sony gives us a huge showcase where they show off some gameplay for some upcoming games that we do and don't know about, that will really get people hyped again to start playing Horizon Forbidden West. And then of course, Gran Turismo 7. Anyway guys, that's all the PlayStation news I have for you today, so make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.